Welcome everybody to the DC New 52 review. I want to thank you for tuning into this episode. I am your host, Pauly DC, and let's get into another one of these things. Today I will discuss Birds of Prey Vol.2. It was titled Your Kiss Might Kill, and it was written by Duane Swierczynski with art by Foreman, with issues 8 to 12 plus 0 being released between May and November of 2012. During Volume 1, the Birds of Prey team for the New 52 started rather small with Black Canary Dinah Lance, Katana Tatsutoro, newcomer Evelyn Crawford or Starling, eventually Batgirl Barbara Gordon came around, and even Poison Ivy Pamela Isley of all candidates showed up. In their first outing, the ladies entered an intense, brain-melting espionage-type mission involving invisible ninjas, mind-controlled citizens, and the master behind it all, Trevor Cahill, aka Choke. Or was he just a pawn in everything too? Let us find out here. Issue number 8 kicks off with some CIA suit named Gangemi looking into a murder victim in Gotham who seems to have lost his head due to a canary cry, which is apparently how Dinah killed someone else, giving us a bit more on why she was said to be on the run in Volume 1 for homicide. Jumping over to the Birds of Prey minus Ivy and Starling, they're in the Cornwell Hotel speaking with an ominous hologram of an unnamed male going by Infiltrator, who sets his squad of goons on the ladies while a huge fire erupts all around them. We got the Firefly knockoff called Napalm, some rock-hard guy in a mawashi going by Flesh, and he slaps around Katana a bit. Then there's Head, yes, he's just called Head, due to having drugs pumped into his head making him impossible to knock out, as Batgirl quickly finds out. And lastly, a very unthreatening person in a bomb disposal suit is trying to neutralize Black Canary with vocal restrainers. Dude wasn't even worthy of a name or alias, plus he can't even complete his task because of Batgirl crashing in on him. Katana looks to be back on her feet and actually giving Flesh a fight now, luring him to a trap fall, sending him down multiple levels, and this then gives Batgirl and Black Canary the idea of leading their foes to a certain area together, where Katana then uses napalm as a falling explosive in an elevator shaft, which causes enough structural damage to the building to bring on a collapse, surely killing the 4 men still inside. Now, Poison Ivy's whereabouts are said to be unknown here, but I can tell you about Starling because she was seen at some secret hideout in South Dakota, but a few minutes in gets snuck up on by Gangemi, who already knows her and mentions some intel on Dinah regarding her spy days, along with also having been married to friggin' Kurt Lance, and he's the one that allegedly was killed by her 3 years ago, which is confirmed by Black Canary personally to her other 2 teammates. Issue number 9 pertains to the BOP's Night of the Owls tie-in, as they took on a hallucinating Talon named Henry, and we got to see Poison Ivy for the first time in this volume, with her helping majorly in the conclusion of defeating their enemy, leading into Black Canary telling the other 3 that she made Ivy a promise which is gonna take them to the jungle in order to repay the favor. Also, if you may have noticed, the art changed from Jesus Saez to Foreman, with him covering the next 2 editions as well. Issue number 10 begins with the whole team inside of a cargo plane flying above South America, except that comes to an end rather quickly due to a missile blasting the aircraft apart, and in one scene all the ladies are free falling thousands of feet, but on the next page they're just on the ground pretty much perfectly fine. How could they do that? How did they catch Poison Ivy and prevent that coffin she's in from becoming her permanent one? I don't know and I don't care. As the team tries to figure out what to do next, a flashback to the Night of the Owls is seen with Batman showing up to collect the Talon, and then insult Black Canary and Starling. Dinah's thoughts here are funniest though. Yeah, you tell him, girl. Layden the pilot is found shortly after this, with Ev spilling the beans that he's a smuggler hauling liquid cocaine at the moment. Oxymoronic much? And Katana is the most not thrilled with this one. Anywho, while Poison Ivy is about to be released, Batgirl is beginning to think Batman was right to tell Black Canary that she cannot trust her, but any further discussions must wait because, out of nowhere, a bunch of plant monsters emerge from the jungle. However, Starling, for some reason, set up Mr. Layden the smuggler's plane to explode due to it being full of the flammable substance. It is what it is, alright? The ladies then run through the jungle while trying to fight it, but all of them eventually get stung by some of the monsters within, right before a second missile drops into their vicinity. Things get even worse when they arrive to a busted rope bridge, which reminds Canary that her special cry can do many things, including bending steel rockets. So she decides to embrace her alias and flies across a ravine using her power, which will never happen again, and I have a lot of questions. Ev then uses a pack of C4 to dispatch of the jungle monsters, except this blast attracts a third missile that blows up next to the girls, but on the last page they're completely fine. Give me a break. Who the hell was even firing those things? Let me just finish this with saying that finally Ivy wakes up here and does that honestly look like a face you could trust? Issue number 11 is told in two major parts, so I'm gonna start with the Birds of Prey still in the Amazon jungle, more specifically some kinda lab temple, where they continue their evasion of the plant monsters, but Layden isn't so lucky because this random smuggler has no reason to be here anymore and gets his neck snapped. With him dead, Black Canary now decides to coincidentally use her power to clear a path, which allows the girls to make it to the heart of the facility, wherein Poison Ivy mentions the green, a huge part of Swamp Thing's title, and also that she's dying. Oh, damn. She says that her new suit is what keeps her alive, so now we know what she mysteriously received in Volume 1. Another major piece of news follows this as Ivy stops the plant creatures that she calls perennials, revealing that she could have done so anytime, but waited for them to sting all of the ladies in order to inject them with a toxin that will consume their bodies in 6 months and turn their corpses into the conduits that will bring on a global holocaust of flora. Yep, I really just said that. Moving on, some useless attacks go her way, resulting in Dinah saying Ivy's plan will never come to fruition, and her response is the BOP now work for me. The first new order of business on the agenda is traveling to Dubai, where the team somehow gets into the Burj Khalifa building undetected, so a meeting of corrupt business people hurting the environment can be interrupted. The gross-looking CEO guy is quick to call in his special security, Archie Andrews, Mr. Washburn, and he does his best to fend off Poison Ivy. However, when the rest of the team jumps in, he stands no chance. And this leaves the troll boss man shouting at the girls until Starling is demanded to execute him, which she appears to do with a single gunshot. Issue number 12 opens on new art by Cliff Richards and Starling indeed having shot the nameless CEO, but with a plant toxin dart enabling Poison Ivy to activate it in his blood whenever she chooses. Yikes. The guy's private jet is then stolen to ruin his day even more, and once in the air, Black Canary is first to strike Ivy due to the recent things she's made the Birds of Prey take part in. This winds up starting a big fight with everyone as Batgirl and Katana jump in while Poison Ivy questions all of their ambiguous moral compasses, and since Starling is flying the plane, all she can do is cause some serious turbulence to try and break things up. Ivy is not very happy about that, next scene lashing out at Ev, so she responds by causing even heavier turbulence which could have easily killed her teammates, right as Dinah and Babs were discussing a plan involving a special signal. Bad time. Anyhow, the team suddenly goes skydiving and sends the plane straight down into an oil rig facility in the Gulf of Mexico. Well then, I'm just glad I'm releasing this video in October and not September. In order to not totally piss off every reader though, the ladies do enter the now flaming facility to rescue any civilians. However, Poison Ivy does demand that Starling overload all of the systems, and ultimately she gets forced to do it with her head, causing the place to implode, so Dinah has to use a canary cry to save everyone, I guess? I say that since we don't see any conclusion. Instead, it is back to Gotham where some scientist is doing rejuvenation experiments on Pamela, and that means signal time from Batgirl, prompting their attempt at something. It's not real clear what the plan actually was, but anyway, the scientist gets bataranged, setting off Poison Ivy into attack mode, and she even takes a canary cry here, which I'm not sure is possible the way it's been presented thus far in the New 52. Alas, Katana has finally had enough, and when the opportunity arises, she fatally slashes Ivy, shocking her team and garnering assault from Dinah. But my question is this: how were we supposed to believe or think that this death would really stick when Poison Ivy is literally seen in other Bat Family titles? Come on. Issue number 0 concludes this volume, and good lord does it get ugly in the continuity department. But more on that in a minute, because the art also changes hands again to Romero Molinar, and things start with Black Canary breaking into the Iceberg Casino run by the Penguin Oswald Cobblepot, so she can beat down some of his goons. But if you were reading Detective Comics, you'll know that the new Iceberg Lounge wasn't revealed until that title's issue number 6, which was only a few months ago, and this story takes place a year ago. Oh boy. The reason Dinah is doing this now is to present herself to Penguin as new muscle, and after showing her canary cry, she is hired on the spot and then told that she just took on the Swift sisters plus Turako, which, if you know Oswald, you're aware those are birds, meaning Miss Lance lands on Black Canary, giving us the New 52 origin for that alias. She also meets Starling here, who also works for Penguin, and Ev can't help but cup some of that BC butt during this first chat. Frisky gal. After a few weeks, it appears the two are there for the same reason, to intercept a member of the Basilisk group who make many New 52 appearances, and this guy is set to do a big deal on the premises, which even brings Batgirl to the scene. However, if this went down a year ago, Barbara Gordon would have still been in the wheelchair or physical recovery. Yeesh. Moving on, Batgirl takes on Starling and Black Canary until realizing they're on the same side, so Dinah is allowed to canary cry the escaping Basilisk guy and dive into the water to retrieve him. I want to say this here quick as well, that little shot of Gotham in this double page spread had me wanting to see more from this art team. Anyway, Starling next is seen having Batgirl at gunpoint, but promptly gets disarmed, and when they figure out again they're all in this together, they steal a boat from Penguin, collectively quitting his employment. We then get a scene of Dinah randomly stripping, and she oh, what happened? On the last page, Ev looks to be working with Bell Rev Warden and Task Force X leader Amanda Waller, who has the still alive Kurt Lance in a test tube. Holy shit. Alright. This plot sort of just abandoned the first one from Volume 1 with hardly a mention of it, and instead we got Poison Ivy suddenly becoming the full-blown antagonist, which, depending on how much you know about Pamela Isley's track record, didn't come as much of a shock. And hey, dying here, whatever you want to call it, obviously wouldn't stick due to her being seen in many other stories. Either than that though, this story didn't really add much nor take away anything. Kurt Lance will be seen more in other series, and Dinah's secret spy past goes beyond this title as well. What else is there to say? Ev is a sassy drinker, and Katana is Katana. With 4 artists taking part in producing the material, there's a bit to get into. Jesus Saez was first up, and he did most of the stuff from Volume 1, which is solid and standard. He did do a terrific action scene here. Travel Foreman always brings the creepy and freaky, fitting best for the BOP's Night of the Owls adventure. It's the last 2 issues I enjoyed most though. Slick and sweet character designs and stellar fight sequences. Lastly, for dialogue, there really wasn't anything that stood out for me to talk about. Things stayed the same from Volume 1, Canary is cagey and not a great leader, Katana barely speaks, but when she does, it's pretty soulless. Aha! Batgirl is just here with less charm and cleverness from her series. Starling, though, as a total newcomer, did bring some unique personality, and Ivy doing her villain thing definitely sounded right. That will be all for today's review, and if you've watched until the end here, I want to personally thank you for that, and to please like, share, and subscribe, please follow me on all my social media platforms, and to please join me next time for Detective Comics Volume 2.